It's all a lie, how you're putting things together. And it's communicating a point of whatever that story is, whatever maybe the theme is. You know, everybody has their own experience or entry point in how they experience stories. And I think a lot of people have it with film and television, or they have it with comic books, or they have it with reading. And for me, I'm thankful because, you know, my dad would just always tell stories. He would tell stories to people. He could definitely hold the attention of a room of like 3 people to 100 people, telling stories, life stories, experiences, things like that. And so I just grew up observing and watching him, how he would tell stories, and how I would hear the same stories over and over again. And then I would notice how things would change. Like stories from World War II, it seemed like over time, him and this Nazi soldier, they keep getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer in the story. But it's like every time he would tell the story, it's just the people who would listen would lean in and lean in and lean in and lean in. Even if you know, these two, him and the other guy would get closer and closer and closer, the point of the story would still stay the same.
Right.
And I feel like when you're writing or when you're filming, and then most importantly, when you are editing, you're creating an experience for somebody else to enjoy. And I know there's a lot of times as a filmmaker, you want to tell yourself, you want things to be authentic. You want things to feel authentic, like it needs to be real, or it needs to feel real, like the emotions need to be real. And it's all true. I personally feel like they need to look like they are real, because it's all a lie, how you're putting things together. And it's communicating a point of whatever that story is, whatever maybe the theme is, or even for what as a whole, what the movie is, whatever the goal is and the conflict and whatever your character is working very hard to achieve. It's still an illusion that you're putting together for someone to experience. And so for me, I feel like it's supposed to touch, like, you know, it's almost like painting. It's like you can, even the artists the incredible artists who paint and things look photoreal, it's incredible. Like, oh, that looks photoreal, but it still isn't. It's emulating what reality looks like, but you enjoy it more because it almost looks photoreal. Like, you know, Chuck Close, he's an artist who can do almost like photoreal painting, and he makes these little shapes, and when you look at them from a distance, they look photoreal, like a photograph almost. If you haven't seen any Chuck Close's paintings, you should definitely check them out. And that's what makes it enjoyable. But real life is boring. If I'm trying to like be entertained, I'm not gonna go sit down and watch somebody else live their life. I want it to be manufactured in a way for me to enjoy. And so it's like a really roundabout way of explaining, I think, what it is that you do as a storyteller. Doesn't matter if you're a writer or a filmmaker or even an actor. I mean, even an actor has to call on past experiences to create, depending on what type of actor they are, but if they're calling up an emotional experience to take that and plug it into a scene to have a similar, to lie, so you, as an audience, believe that they're crying or they're angry about what's happening in the scene, but they're just calling up something that happened in their childhood to be believable. you know, that should tell you right there that everything that you're doing is manufactured. And so just understanding that, I think you can enjoy the process of creating something and not getting hung up on everything having to be so real. Sorry, that didn't really conclude well, but
no, it informs the fact that you watched your dad sort of hold court, and this like sort of, he was very great at telling stories, and whether they sort of changed here and there, but you know, I can see that in you as well, that you really do sort of hold the attention of the listener by telling stories, and I think it's been passed down, and it's an art. Not everybody can do it.
yeah, I agree. It is an art, but you can learn it. I feel like if you didn't grow up learning anything about storytelling, you're a human being. You can learn how to tell a story. I think it's in our DNA as people. You know, as cavemen, we told each other stories. You know, we have old stories like Gilgamesh or Noah and the Ark. And, you know, there's so many different civilizations across the world where they all have a Noah's Ark type story.
Sure.
There's things about us as people that deep down inside of us that we just gravitate towards these certain types of stories, which, you know, there's like a million documentaries and books about how Star Wars is like the hero of 1,000 faces.
Right.
You know, it's the story we keep retelling about ourselves. And so that's why I think if anybody is wanting to be a filmmaker, they don't have to be discouraged about not having any sort of background where they, you know, didn't grow up around on sets or people telling stories or whatever. Everybody's got a story within them. You have your own story that only you can tell, and you should tell it if you want to.
Sure. When it's the right time, maybe.
Sure,
in
yeah.
life, yeah. I feel like there's like a farmer's almanac or something, you know?
Oh, yeah. I used to read, my dad had, because my dad was a farmer, he always got the farmer's almanac. I mean, my dad made wine, he made sauerkraut, he dried fruit. I did all this stuff during the summer with him, and because he grew up on a farm, even though I grew up in town, he still had his green thumb, and we had a very large backyard, and half of it was a garden, and there was so many fruit trees back there, and so my dad had the almanac, and I remember like reading it, like, they know you're gonna get this much rain in the future? It seems crazy. And my dad, he just was like, well, I don't know, they seem to have figured it out. That's what he would say.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.